Hello and welcome to another Karmik Channels broadcast. Throughout this Karmik Channels original Time to Heal series, we will be interviewing practitioners in their field of expertise in order to assist you on your journey back to health, mind, body, and spirit. It's time to heal with Don Snyder, an Akashic Records practitioner. Welcome, Don.
Hi, Ron.
So, Don, would you please tell our listeners what Akashic Records are?
Akashic Records are, some people would say that they're like a book of your soul. That's one of the analogies that I hear a lot, is that there's a library, and someplace in India, I guess, I don't know. But the reality of it is that the Akashic Records are an energetic recording of everything that your soul has ever experienced, thought, felt since its inception in the beginning of time. And that energy is contained in something that science knows as the ether. And when you translate ether into Sanskrit, it becomes Akasha. With that in mind, accessing the records is purely a energetic type of a situation. To kind of describe what the ether is, if you would imagine a carbon atom, it's going to have a nucleus and 6 electrons circling it. If that nucleus was the size of a Volkswagen Beetle, then the entire atom would be roughly the size of the island of Puerto Rico, and you would have the electrons circling it would be about the size of a pea. So what keeps that whole structure from collapsing? What's inside the structure that's not atomic? That's the ether. Science knows it exists. They know that only 4 to 5% of the mass of the universe is atomic energy, and they can't identify the other 95 to 96%, and probably never will be able to because it's too high of a frequency. Anyway, that's what the Akashic Records are. They're an energetic recording.
Were you raised in a specific belief system that may have influenced your decision to learn about Akashic Records?
That's a little bit of both. When I was 13, I was being raised as a Lutheran. I'm half Swede and a quarter German, and I live in Minnesota. You're gonna be Lutheran. That's the way it works. But anyway, we were on a teen retreat that year, and during the course of that retreat, suddenly what I perceived to be God started talking to me. I would ask a question, and the question would get answered. And so I thought this was all pretty cool, that I'd went away to this church retreat, and all of a sudden I could talk to God personally and get personal answers. When I told a family member about this, I was told that was sacrilegious and blasphemous, and only trained people can talk to God. So I kind of stymied that until I was about 52, 53 years old. But over the course of my, those 40 years, I don't want to say knowingly access psychic information and Akashic information, but it would happen. I would be brushing my teeth at night, and all of a sudden things would just come into my head. Sometimes they were about my kids, sometimes they were about a problem I was trying to solve at work. But I knew that this information was coming in. And then a little over 3 years ago, I met my wife, Lucia, and she had a book by Edgar Cayce called Edgar Cayce on the Akashic Records. And I started reading that, and everything started making a whole lot more sense. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where it went from there. I just started reading as much as I could on the Akashic Records, and the next thing I knew, I was offering free readings, and people were confirming the information that I was getting. They were asking me some test questions, mm-hmm. As well as curiosity questions. So it just kind of took off.
Are there any experiences that stand out while you were growing up related to your current work?
So, yeah. I mean, we've got that situation when I was 13. That was a pretty strong one. Probably the other one that stands out a lot is I was 19 years old, and I was playing football in college. Actually, I was 18. I was playing football in college, and I knew that I wasn't supposed to be playing football. Mm-hmm. And sure as heck, the next day at practice, somebody sideswipes me and takes my knee out. Wow. And that was the end of my football career. But I knew it was coming. So I asked whether or not I should try to make a comeback, and I was told no, I wasn't supposed to do that. Unfortunately, I kept playing hockey for another 40 years, but that's another story.
So moving on, what is the most profound lesson you have learned in your work?
Well, from a healing perspective, what I have learned is that I can help trigger healing for somebody. They have to be capable of healing themselves. They've got to want to be healed, and they've got to believe that they can be healed. Interestingly enough, probably only about 1 out of 10 people that come to see me come for healing knowingly. But during the course of a reading, they'll ask a question oftentimes that makes them get very emotional. And once the answer to why, what, when, whatever it is that the question is about gets answered properly, you can see the relief in their face. So sometimes healing by voice is just as valuable as healing with energy.
No, I do believe that too. Yes, I agree with that. And then are there any specific client success stories that stand out in your mind?
Let's take one of the most recent ones that I've had. I've got a friend who came over to the house for a reading on healing, and we were going to also use a past life regression. Because within the records, I can see people's past lives. And I knew she had a life that she could see that would be relevant to her concerns right now in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And so we opened up her records, we did a short reading, we kind of identified where the issue was, but the issue was that it was from a past life. It was cellular memory, karmic memory, whatever you want to call that, soul level memory. Anyway, so we went on the healing table, and I helped her get very relaxed, put her into almost a hypnotic state, more of a meditative state. We went through the past life regression, and she went back and recalled this lifetime that she had had. And during the course of that lifetime, how do I want to say this? She experienced a loss. Her concern in this lifetime was whether she was going to experience a similar loss. And once it was found out that it was strictly a soul level memory, her whole attitude changed. She came off the table and she was glowing.
She was able to release that fear.
Release the fear.
Wow, awesome. So what are your interests and hobbies outside of your work?
Oh gosh. I've got 2 daughters and a couple of grandsons, 3 grandsons. So I like to hang out with my grandsons in particular. But more than anything, I like to go solo canoeing up in the Boundary Waters in Quetico. I just like to be out alone in the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
I've started taking Lucia with, my wife, but if she knows I'm going on a rugged trip, she won't come with. So. And that's fine, because she's never camped or canoed until she met me, so that makes a lot of sense. But that's really one of the things that works very well for me. I come back from one of those trips and I'm a totally different person than when I went on it.
Mm-hmm.
Other things that I like to do around the house would be anything to do with making something out of wood. If I can touch wood for whatever reason, it just it passes an energy through to me, and it just makes me feel good. And if I get the chance to dance, I'll do that too. But I'm getting to that point where going to bed at 9 is more attractive than going out and dancing at 9. So
Yeah.
it doesn't happen as often as it used to.
So you're very connected to nature, basically, and coming back from one of your trips, camping and canoeing and stuff, you feel rested and relieved, I guess?
Yeah, and re-energized.
Re-energized.
Yeah,
That's the word I was looking for.
There's both rested and re-energized comes out of it.
Yeah.
There's just no other way to describe it. It gives me energy for the next 6 to 12 months. I used to take my oldest daughter on trips up to Lake Namican and Kabetogama, and we'd find an island and stay on it for 5 days. And when she was like 12, it was more of an adventure. By the time she got to be about 15 or 16, she knew what it was all about. And she really didn't care if we caught a fish. She didn't care what we did as long as we went up there for 5 days.
Wow.
And it was really encouraging to see her also enjoy it that much.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Don, so in your line of work, what are the common questions that you come across with your clients?
Well, the majority of the questions have to do with somebody's soul's purpose. And I can't tell you directly what somebody's soul's purpose is. I can help you explore it. What usually happens when this question gets asked is I'll get a list of gifts that they've been given to use in this lifetime. That'll be 6 to 10 different gifts. Once the list of gifts is given to me, or even sometimes during the course of being given, certain gifts will be highlighted. And that combination of gifts being highlighted tells us what their soul really wants to experience in this lifetime. And oftentimes, I would say probably half of the time or more, people are already in a line of work where they're using those 2 to 3 or 4 highlighted gifts. If somebody comes in and they've got really strong healing energy in them, I'll find that oftentimes they're an EMT or a nurse or a doctor of some type. If they've got really strong leadership, they might be a small business owner or even a CEO of a larger company, or oftentimes the head of a large department in a large company. But it's pretty consistent that when we explore somebody's soul's purpose, they get to find out what their gifts are and the gifts that they're supposed to be working on within this lifetime.
Awesome. That sounds very interesting. So with that being said, how much feedback do you get from your clients in regards to progress after they've met with you?
That varies a lot from client to client. Probably 10% of them will get back to me at some point and say, when you told me that this relationship was meant to have this kind of an energy about it, I didn't understand that. And they'll come back and say, yeah, this is exactly the energy that it needed to have versus the energy that it had before I got the reading. Or somebody will come back and say, you know what, based on the gifts that you found that I had, and I'd been really unsatisfied in my prior job, I've decided to go back to school, or I've decided to pursue that line of work somehow. Mm-hmm. So I get it often enough that I'm comfortable giving out that information.
Good.
But it doesn't happen all the time.
Yeah. All right, Don. Well, thank you very much for joining us on this Karmik Channel's original Time to Heal series. We enjoyed having you, and we hope you come back again.
Well, thanks, Ron. Thanks, Jill. I appreciate it. If you do want any information about Akashic readings, I have a website that's got additional information on it, and that is Donald, like the duck, and then J, just the letter, Snyder, SNYDER.com. And you can download a brochure there. You can peruse through some of the pages that have some additional information. Or if you're just looking for some additional resources, I have a tab on there that lists practitioners that I'm comfortable recommending, books that I enjoyed reading, all sorts of things.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Don, for joining us again, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Jill.